Greetings, programs, and welcome to the Awesome Friday podcast, the only podcast where we review 2 films every week. We're the only one that does it. We own the format. It is patented and copyrighted and trademarked. And
we have worldwide copyright on
Yes.
home audio equipment.
yes, we have world licensing rights. But my name is Matthew, and I am your host. And with me is Simon. Say das Bidania, Simon.
No names. I am strictly here on an observational position.
Yes, we could do this all day, but I will stop. But yeah,
Sorry, we're looking at Tetris today. In case you were wondering why we were doing literally any of this, one of the films we're talking about this week is Tetris, and it's very, very Russian pantomime. So that was our Russian pantomime KGB voices, and I thought we did rather well.
I mean, just don't. If you're Russian and you're hearing my terrible Russian accent, just know that I am sorry. The cardinal rule of doing accents is to never do them in front of the person who has that accent.
Oh my god!
But it's kind of hard when you're on a radio show that people listen to. So.
Well, thank you for making us number 3 in the Good Pods chart, comic chart, and we're so good. We're number 3 in it twice, which is nice.
That's true, and also it's a category that I didn't actually realize we were in, so that's kind of amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How's your week been?
Oh, it's been terrible. But you know, getting better. It's just been a long week. You know, I have to three jobs and no money, so it's a
welcome to Vancouver.
Yeah, welcome to living in Vancouver in the year of our Lord 2023.
How close are you to buying a plot of land on Salt Spring and becoming a goat farmer, and no one ever sees you again? You put up Resident Evil style fences around your property, and you sell goat cheese at the front gate, and that's it.
Look, I don't know how to break this to you, but if I can't afford an apartment in Vancouver, then I also can't afford a plot of land on Salt Spring.
Come on, Salt Spring, you just walk up and put your fence up and you've got, it's like Stardew Valley, basically, isn't it?
No, as with most millennials, I am going to be stuck until somebody passes away, basically, is how it's going to work. Or win the lottery. I could win the lottery. It's a thing that could theoretically happen.
It's a tax on dreams.
Yeah. It's a tax on stupid dreams.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, no,
Anyway.
yeah, I'm fine. We're all fine. I did receive a bunch of movies from the Criterion Flash sale, so I'm gonna try and watch at least one of those today.
You got those really quickly. That Criterion delivery does not fuck around, does it? You got them really quick.
Actually, because I'm in Canada, I actually got them kind of late. Like most people I know who ordered stuff were posting it like several days ago, whereas I only received mine. Technically this is Sunday, so technically 2 days ago, but people were posting theirs on like Monday and Tuesday. But mine had a border to go over, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so you paid extra. Like Last Emperor, I imagine I haven't seen The Last Emperor in a long time, but I watched a print of it at some point, and I bet the Blu-ray of The Last Emperor on your TV is just going to be visually just drugs, that film. Yeah. It's so beautiful. It's such a gorgeous film.
You know, the thing though is that ultimately what's going to happen today is I'm going to look at I've acquired a number of Blu-rays in the last week, and ultimately what's going to happen is I'm going to look at, I got a shiny new Criterion edition of Rashomon. I got a shiny new Criterion edition of the Grand Budapest Hotel. I got a shiny new Criterion of The Power of the Dog, which, to be fair, is a movie I enjoy, but it's actually not the one I meant to order. But that's a whole other story. And I got a shiny new Criterion of The Last Emperor, and I also picked up the limited edition steelbook of the 4K of Dragon Slayer. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. And I also got the Arrow Video Special Edition Blu-ray of Pitch Black. And so I'm going to tell you, out of those 6 movies, there's 2 that I am most likely to watch. and none of them start with the words Criterion Edition this week.
Speaking as someone with 2 kids and a dog who has to go to the vet today, the jealousy levels that you are about to watch a Blu-ray of is Pitch Black a Blu-ray?
Yeah.
Or 4K? Is it 4K or Blu-ray?
It's a Blu-ray. It's a Blu-ray.
But I am so jealous you're going to have those 2 films back to back with nothing but you and your cats today. Like that is, yeah, you have earned that time, my friend. That is your time. So I hope you enjoy it. The only sound is slightly bitter. Oh, but look at it. For those who can't see, I will now do descriptive video. Matthew is holding up a steelbook of the Vin Diesel movie Pitch Black. It's glorious. It has him standing in front of the sun, holding a knife or something, looking muscular and amazing. This is the...
I don't think it's a knife. I think it's actually one of the monster's teeth.
Oh, it's been a while. I love that era of Vin Diesel movies where he got big, but not so big he decided to be the star. Like, he is brilliant in this movie because he is maybe the antagonist who turns into the protagonist. Well, not maybe. He's a baddie who turns good because he's protecting people against nighttime monsters, and Radha Mitchell's in it doing her best Sigourney Weaver impression. And the opening 10 minutes of that movie is the best surround sound test I've ever heard. I know you've got a different one, but it's the movie I use to test any speaker setup I've ever got coming from a TV. I am so jealous. I love that film.
Yeah,
I really, really.
You know why? It's because it's a great film. I also love that era of Vin Diesel movie where we all understood that he was somehow appealing but not actually very good. You know,
I mean, that's all of that's still true now.
Yeah, but we don't really admit it in the same way that we used to. Do you know what I mean? Like, we used to be like, oh, Vin Diesel, this is going to be a fun, stupid, poorly acted movie. And now we're like, you know, there's people who talk about the Fast and Furious movies as the greatest American franchise. And to be fair, that's because they are. But also, he's still not a very good actor in the same way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
but I think he's in on it. Like, he's made some very interesting dramas. He's done dramatic work, and I think he's realized that he wants to have more fun on sets, and he knows how much fun people have watching his movies. Like, if you watch, I love Triple X3 with all my heart. It's great. That's the closest any American company has ever come to making something like Pathan, like some kind of Indian ridiculous action movie with a couple of the same stars as well. But I think that he gets why people go to watch action movies in a way that someone like The Rock or your Shazam guy don't. Like, and I think that's the big difference, is that he doesn't... I don't think he has any delusions of grandeur beyond you're going to come to the cinema and watch my film and have an amazing time. And I really felt that watching Fast X as well. I loved Fast X. I thought it was... Is that the one that's just come out? The one that we haven't seen yet? Whatever the last one was.
The last one was called F9.
F9, right.
F9, the Fast Saga, or F9. And honestly, I'm just gonna put it out there that I think the fact that the next one, the 10th Fast and Furious movie, is called Fast 10 or Fast X and not Fast 10 your seatbelt is just highlights a failure of our society.
Yes,
you should have
done better there, really.
Especially like, I don't know. My favorite one is, I know you don't agree, but Fast 5 is by far the best one, I think. And
I would need to rewatch Fast 5. The moment I fell in love with Fast and Furious as a franchise was Fast 6. And I think
Fast 5 is just Broshan's 11. That's what it is. You know, it's Ocean's 11, but they all drive sports cars. That's right. All the movie is, and it's a great version of that kind of, like, to the point where, like, there's 3 of them and they're like, oh, we're gonna need another guy, and then they figure out they need another thing and they're like, oh, we'll have to bring in another guy. You know, until they have a full team of specialists who perfectly execute this elaborate heist plan. And it's just that, like, instead of being a huge misdirect where they walk the money out the front door dressed as police, they're dragging a bank vault with 2 police cars that are actually Mustang. Like, it's a ridiculous film, and I love it so much.
Is that the one with the big chase through the Brazilian favela? That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good film.
It's also the last one where they're not just superheroes. You know?
Okay. That's exactly kind of where I was going. Like, I feel like 6 pushed the boundary of them getting a bit more pantomime, a bit more stupid, but in a good way, if that makes sense. A bit less realistic. And since 6, I think that each movie has tried to up that scale of you won't believe this because it's unbelievable, because it's actually not possible that for a car to Spider-Man its way over a chasm, or to go into space and then come back and everyone be fine. Like, it's complete escapism. And I think they do it really, really well.
They do it really, really well, and they operate on, I think we may have even said this last week, but they definitely operate on the same wavelength of films like Patan and, big,
for sure,
bombastic action films. But, 5 is the last one where they are not literally just superheroes. And it's, I still think, and I say this as a person who loves all of them, with the potential exclusion of 8, which I think is fine. But I think there's some. I very much appreciate 5 for that reason, and I just think it's also just like the tightest story and the best acting and the best narrative economy of all of them. It's not trying to push the It's not that it's not trying to push boundaries. It's that it's not trying to constantly add to what's going on or set things up for the next movie. Like, from about 6 on, you can tell they know they're getting more movies. And I'm sure they knew that with 5 as well, but in 6 it really does feel like they're like, okay, this is for the next one. And 8 is the worst one for that too, where like they literally don't beat the bad guy. They just don't. It's a whole thing.
Is 10 still going to be 2 movies?
Yep. Well, it's 10 and 11 technically.
Oh, it's not a part 1, part 2.
I don't think so. Fast and Furious 11. It's still on there. I think. The latest rumor is that he's trying to get Robert Downey to join the cast. That's fun.
Of course he is. At this point, it's a call of honor, isn't it, to get that phone call?
I mean, Charlize Theron will have been in 3 of them when 10 comes out.
I think it's really interesting to me, and I think about this about Adam Sandler as well, that people keep coming back to be in his movies. Like, people keep turning up. There's no way Helen Mirren would turn up to be in a Fast and Furious if there was any kind of douchebaggery going on. Because the whole shit that happened when The Rock... I feel like The Rock may have been the douchebag element here when he was throwing shit around for unprofessional practices or whatever. Like, people keep... Vin Diesel can pick up a call and say, do you want to be in a Fast and Furious movie? And most people, I bet he calls, go, yeah, without even reading anything. Because I think he's got... reputation is a powerful thing in this kind of ensemble, and people keep coming back and people keep wanting to do it, and I don't think that's for nothing. And so I bet they have just a great time filming. I know Helen Mirren has talked at length about how much fun she's had with Vin Diesel in the car and what a sweetheart he is and how much they joke around, and I trust Helen Mirren more than The Rock when it comes to someone's personality.
You know, I'm just looking at the cast list for Fast 10, and of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So there's 17 people who are like listed characters on the Wikipedia page. I'm just going to put this out there. 2 of them, actually, sorry, no, in this one, only 1 of them, because The Rock's not in it. So only 1 of them is a former wrestler. But 4 of them are Oscar winners. But seriously, Helen Mirren won Best Actress, Charlize Theron won Best Actress, Brie Larson won Best Actress, and Rita Moreno is in the new one, and she won Best Supporting Actress. So, like,
there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. 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 Oh, and Brie Larson's uh oh, that's cute. Brie Larson's character like apparently she drew on Vin Diesel's daughter as like inspiration for the character. And his daughter's name is Pauline, named after Paul Walker. Oh,
Oh, stop. Stop it.
family. Yeah. Anyway,
Family.
you're mispronouncing it. There's a B. There's a very distinct
I'm
B.
sorry. Sorry, that's my English pronunciation. I was just
Family.
thinking about how it also had Kurt Russell and Bruce Willis in there, and then I got sad about Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
So yeah, may the franchise never die. I really hope that for X and for X plus one make so much money. They're like, okay, Vin, this is a franchise that we want to keep making. Let's just keep making these stupid car heist movies with ridiculous cameos. Like, this is our Avengers now. This is our Endgame. Every movie, just have some more money and make us a damn movie.
I mean, they're just soap operas for dude bros, like right down to, you know, Sung Kang's character having died and then been revealed to have only faked his death 3 movies later, and the timeline of the first like 7 of them being like 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 4, 7, or no, 5, 5, 6, 7, 4, 8, or whatever it is. It's ridiculous and wonderful. And you know, Michelle Rodriguez's character lost her memory for a movie that was 6, I believe.
I mean, in a world of MCU and domination, Fast and Furious is probably the best true comic book movie out there. I find Marvel movies are getting less and less, we've talked about this before, less and less comic booky because they take fewer chances. But Fast and Furious is going the other way. Like, Fast 9 was a pure comic book excess, and all the better for it.
Yeah, right up to, like, we all knew they were going to space. They made it to space before Tom Cruise, which is just impressive. Although, to be fair, when the time comes, we all know he's going to do it for real.
So. Yeah, apparently that's in the works.
I mean, he is I do love Tom Cruise. I'm a major Tom Cruise fan, with the acknowledgement that he is both a crazy person and a cult member and has benefited from modern day slave labor. But anyway, that's a show for another time.
I do worry now. I am looking forward to the new Mission Impossible movies like you cannot imagine. Like, Christopher McQuarrie is a genius and he's got a brilliant working relationship with Tom Cruise. But it does, like, all the marketing up to this point is really, really focused on here's how we almost killed him in this movie, and it's better than we almost killed him in the last movie. And at some point, one thing's going to happen. Either they're not going to be able to top themselves, or they're going to kill Tom Cruise by throwing him.
They're either not going to be able to top themselves, or, to use the British slang, they're gonna top him.
I mean, how else is this going to play out? They can't keep throwing because he's an old man now. They can't keep throwing him out of planes for real and sending him to space for real. God knows what his insurance is on all this. I can't even.
I'm pretty sure he pretty sure he just covers it.
It's fine. That's sure. Yeah.
But the thing to remember about Tom Cruise is that they're not just idly throwing him into things. At this point, he is the most highly trained stuntman in the world, in addition to being a good actor. Like, he puts in the time, he does all the training, he does everything he needs to make sure that it is whatever he's doing is both practical and safe. And when I say I'm not actually using hyperbole, I do legitimately believe he is the most highly trained stuntman in the world. And that will probably expose some ignorance of stuntmen in general. But generally speaking, like, of me, but generally speaking, like, I see a lot of stunt people on screen, and they're generally specialists. There's fight guys, there's guys who fall off stuff, that kind of thing. But Tom Cruise has jumped out of planes. He's learned to pilot a helicopter. And he's dangled from a rope that's on a moving helicopter, and he's climbed a 1,000-foot cliff, and that was just in his last movie. You know?
Yeah,
So
he's next level. He's just he pushes himself to learn everything. I mean, you're right. He's got that versatility completely.
yeah, and this is actually a pretty good segue into our first film of this show, which now that we've bantered for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
because Tom Cruise, I feel, does share one thing with this film's main star, which is they both very much appear to love making movies.
Mm-hmm.
And Keanu Reeves is like my favorite. My favorite story about Keanu Reeves in the past couple of years is literally, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Chad Stahelski, but there's someone picked him up to take him to the set of John Wick 3, and on his way there, apparently he was just like bouncing up and down in the car, going, "Making movies, making movies, making movies." Like he just is like super excited just to be making movies. And let me tell you, when we talk about John Wick Chapter 4 for the next 20 minutes, that comes through in every frame. This guy loves making movies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're going to talk about John Wick 4. And the synopsis of the film is that it's set several months, I'm guessing, after the end of 3, because he's,
Mm-hmm.
very badly wounded at the end of 3, and he's fully recuperated at the beginning of 4. And he's handed a suit by the Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne, and they start their bloody campaign of revenge against the High Table, and then the rest of the 3-hour movie is an action scene.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's a bit rushed in places, but John goes to confront the elder of like the person who sits above the table, and then he starts hunting down people who wronged him, and then basically the High Table empowers the Marquis, who's played by Bill Skarsgård, give him carte blanche to just deal with John Wick. And he understands he needs to kill not just John Wick, but the idea thereof. And so he starts basically burning John Wick's life to the ground in a far more significant way than the other bad guys have done that. The first thing he does is blow up the New York Continental, which I found actually quite shocking. And then proceed to like hunt down everyone who's ever called John Wick friend, including Hiroyuki Sanada, who's the manager of the Tokyo Continental. And part of the way he does this is that he recruits another sort of legendary agent played by Donnie Yen, also former friend of John Wick, named Kane. And so there's a number of amazing Donnie Yen fight scenes. And also in the mix is Shamir Anderson, Canadian actor Shamir Anderson, as Mr. Nobody, who's a tracker who's pursuing John Wick for the ever-increasing amount of money that is his open contract. And I don't really want to say too much more about the plot, really, because there's not really that much more of the plot. It really is just existing to loosely string together these pretty intense action sequences as we've come to know and love from the John Wick films. And I don't want to spoil any of the few surprises that there might be. But basically, if you've been enjoying my one sentence review is that if you have been enjoying the John Wick films, you shall continue to enjoy the John Wick films. This is very much in the same vein as 2 and 3. For me personally, I think I still prefer 3. But we're talking about like good versus great, or great versus amazing might even be a better way to put it. The last hour of this movie, it is a long movie at 170 odd minutes. But the last like hour of it is one long, very well executed action sequence, including, I would say, there's a fight up a staircase that is one of the best things in the franchise. And there's also a one scene that's shot from above that might be one of the best things in the franchise. And I don't want to spoil any of it for you, but it involves, again, a floating camera and a shotgun with incendiary rounds. And that's actually probably the most fun sequence in the whole movie, and maybe the franchise. But it's good. It's good. Like if you like John Wick movies, you're gonna like this movie. That's it. That's the whole review. There's no, it ups the stakes a little bit. It ups the action a little bit. And Chad Stahelski, the director of all four, who I'm so glad stayed the director of this one, because I think, having watched his movies and also a lot of David Leitch movies, I now have opinions about the two of them. But David Leitch does seem to be very openly trying to push himself as a filmmaker, not just in terms of upping the stakes of the film, but also making more inventive ways of filming what's going on. And I think it really comes through in this film. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. How do you feel about the movie, Simon?
So let me tell you why any of these movies work. And that's because Keanu Reeves is the greatest screen physical actor since Harold Lloyd.
That's true. That's just implied.
There's nobody there, but it is incredibly hard to pull all that off. And also, someone else said there's no one else who's better at holding a gun. And there's a wonderful moment in this film where the daughter Akira, the daughter of the Osaka Continental manager, who's also his concierge, says, "Are you armed?" And to answer this, Keanu Reeves pulls out his gun. And I know that doesn't sound overly dramatic, but it is the best way anyone has ever taken a gun out and showed that they are armed. Because
that's true.
He fucking just, his whole body. I look at a lot of bodies, like all of bodies, when it comes to physical theatre, and that's what this is completely. Every ounce, every molecule in his body is focused on this one thing at that one time, and I'm sure you've seen the behind the scenes of his training for all of these movies, and he takes it very, very seriously and becomes very, very, very proficient at shooting. And the thing about the John Wick as a franchise, because after watching this, I went back and watched every other John Wick movie again, just so I could be sure about where this fits in my ranking. And since 2, the whole idea of the high table and the rules of the high table have been the contrast against the freedom. So John only wants his freedom, and the high table wants order. And there's never been a way for that to kind of exist at the same time. If they give him an opportunity to go free, it's always at a terrible cost that he then is unwilling to pay, like killing Winston in the third one. And so he gets then in more shit with the high table, which the next movie then tries to resolve. And it is the sense of the John Wick movies is that each one is an attempt to be bigger and better, and certainly with a bigger budget as well. And it's been really, really interesting for me to watch the excesses of 4 and then go back to 1. And 1 actually seems
almost
very
grounded, very stripped down by comparison.
Yeah.
By comparison.
And I really, really like 1 because after 2 they introduced the Kevlar suits, which I think is a bit of a cop out, but I don't need to talk too much about that. But in 1 you have to dodge the bullets; they can't just hit you, and your Kevlar suit sort of reflects them. So there's a lot of movement, physicality. The fight scene where the squad comes to John Wick's house when he's just dug up all his weapons. He's decided to take revenge. He's spoken to this local Russian mob leader, and he sends a squad out to kill him. And John used to work for him, so there's this history as well. And the fight scene of that squad coming into his home and him taking them down is still one of the best fight scenes. Like director,
that's an incredible sequence.
Chad Stahelski is as much a dance choreographer as he is a filmmaker, and I think that's an absolutely essential part for why these movies work, because the dance choreography in these movies is exceptional. Except instead of dancing, they are moving and shooting. But there's a lot of passive camera work as well. I know we both love a camera that actually lets you see the fights, lets you see the longer takes. And so I rewatched 1. I don't think 2 is as successful. 2 is a bit bloated and a bit misguided because it does try to introduce too much lore, the high table lore. 3 for me is the high point still of the franchise because it combines all those things together, but goes back to the pure choreographed jet setting epic fantasy of one man trying to find his freedom, and also there's a wonderful. The best part of 3 is an escape from the Continental in Casablanca with Keanu Reeves and Halle Berry, and the whole thing with two dogs is choreographed and shot perfectly, and it is a series of extended takes of lots and lots and lots of moves, guns and fighting, and it is just like so satisfying. It's just so satisfying to not be an inch away with a cut every half second, so they can patch together like the single moves that actors learn, and then they move on to the next one because it's easier, and then they just patch them all together. There's none of that in this film. Like, you can see the work. Halle Berry is an absolute goddess in that film, and she holds a candle to Keanu Reeves, and there's not many who can. And I think my opinion of 4 coming out of 4 is that 4 is still an action masterpiece, but I think it was a little bloated, and I think it went back a little too much on it needed its epic solution. And you're right, the last hour was definitely the longest hour.
Yeah.
Saying that Donnie, if I just, before I forget, 2 things. Donnie Yen is clearly having a brilliant time. I would watch Donnie Yen just do his shopping. He's magnetic. And also, this is the second film I've seen Scott Adkins in, and it's the second film that he has stolen completely by being incredible. So I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, 3's better for me.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying, I don't disagree with anything particularly you're saying. The whole 8711 action design team, I think, does some excellent work. And I think they're really good at doing action in a way that both of us really appreciate. In particular, when Stahelski's in charge. I feel like it's not as successful. Like, I know you loved Bullet Train, but I thought it was just a little too... I feel like David Leitch doesn't have the same voice and doesn't push himself to try new things in the same way that Stahelski does. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just also just a fact of Keanu Reeves wanting to do more and be more in these films. But sort of lost my train of thought here. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, yeah, I agree. I think that 1 is obviously was only ever intended to be a one-off. So 2 adds way too much lore. It's way out of balance. And 3 is the best balance of all of the things. And 4 is pretty close. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
But it's sort of... And it's obviously also designed to give the character an end. Like, I think the original plan was for this to be maybe the last one. And so that rather than going, super epic with it, they go kind of meaningfully with it. It's hard to talk about the way it ends without giving it away. But they are clearly trying for a more resonant ending than epic. And I don't think it's unsuccessful, but I think it's just not what I necessarily wanted, especially when the action sequence ahead of it, which is Keanu Reeves fighting his way up a set of stairs, is legitimately incredible. And you're right that while you were talking, one of my notes to talk about was, like, I'd really like to see Keanu Reeves do a musical, not because I think he could sing, but because I really want to see him dance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying I don't think he can sing. I have no idea if he can sing, but I really want to see this guy take on, like, a really complicated dance number. Because I think it might be legitimately incredible.
Yeah.
And because it is. He's so good. You're right. He's got such a physicality. He acts so much with his whole body. Just the way he, like, even when he, like, takes a hit or he's knocked over, just the way the way his face and body behave when he's getting up from situations like that is compelling, because you can tell there's this perfect balance of, like, I am going to kill you, and also, like, Jesus, that hurt. And, like, and a lot of the best ones are often the look on his face. It's like, really? Like, really?
Yeah.
And he's just so, despite being a superhuman person, at one point in this movie, he falls from a 3rd-story balcony, lands on an outcropping, bounces off an outcropping, off of his spine, and lands flat on the ground and just, like, gets up. Like, he is not a human person. but he feels very human regardless. And that is all to do with the way that Keanu Reeves just moves on screen. And it's pretty wonderful to watch.
He does the humor beats really well, and I think you do see that better. John Wick 3 has there's an element of John Wick 3 where a hit squad is sent after John Wick by the High Table to take down the people that helped him. It's led by Mark Dacascos. You're going to correct me. The Iron Chef guy.
Dacascos.
Thank you. And it turns out that he and his squad turn out to be massive John Wick fanboys. And it's just handled really, really well. Like mid-fight, they're like, "Excuse me, it's such an honor to meet you and to fight you." And and he has when they end up in the Continental and they're sat next to each other, Mark and Keanu, and it's great because Mark does the whole thing like we're the same, you and I. And John Wick's like, "No, we're not." He says, "No, we are." And Keanu just says, "No, we're not," and just walks away. And it's just such a perfect refutation of that cliche and what fanboys think about their heroes. Like, "Oh, he's just like me for real." It's like, you're nothing like me. Like, stop deluding yourself. And I thought 4 could have done with that kind of hand with the comedic elements as well, because he can definitely pull it off. But I mean, there are a couple of things in 4 that I was disappointed by. I don't think Bill Skarsgård is a fantastic actor. I don't think he was fantastic in this movie. He's kind of
I did think his French, because he's meant to be a Frenchman, and I did think his French accent was a little bit too, what's the best way to say this? It's a little bit too
not French.
I am doing a French accent, and I am being a douchebag as a result.
They wanted him to be foreign. Why not make him Danish? I reckon he's got a pretty good Danish accent that he could do instead of French.
One can only imagine.
I was also super disappointed that
Swedish. He's Swedish, isn't he? Is he Swedish? He's Swedish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but also make him Swedish.
Make him Swedish. Don't make him French. From the trailers, I thought that Rina Sawayama would have a much bigger role in this movie, and she's only in it for probably my favorite part of the movie is the first third, and she has a major role, and she is brilliant as like this archer who defends him on the rooftop.
Yeah,
but then
she's legitimately great. Yeah,
and also what's his name? Shamir Anderson.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen him in anything. He is just like magnet. He is so charismatic, and he's got this journal, right? And it's clear that he's trying to get John Wick's contract up. So there's one point at the beginning where he could have killed him. He's like, "No, you're not worth enough yet." And it's shown like he crosses out these monetary values. He's trying to get 50 million, and then that's never really resolved. And at the end, he kind of I won't tell you what happens, but I don't feel like they gave his arc enough time to sort of resolve itself. So it did, like you said at the beginning, a few bits felt rushed, and that was a rushed bit for me. So there were a few elements that didn't quite work out for me.
I don't know if I necessarily agree, because there's definitely a moment that makes clear why, like the way that Shamir Anderson's, the way Mr. Nobody's arc resolves, there's a solid couple of moments where it's made clear why he behaves the way he does in the last third of the movie, and it did not work for me. But he's a magnet. You have seen him in at least one thing. He was in a really bad movie we reviewed a year or two ago called Awake, which is the one where what's their name? It's the one where they like people can't fall asleep, or if they fall asleep they die or something. I can't remember. And like the daughter can sleep but the mother can't, and it wasn't a good movie, so it doesn't really matter. It had Gina Rodriguez in it and Jennifer Jason Leigh and a few other people.
No memory of that film whatsoever.
It was like 2 years ago. And he was good in it, but like the movie itself was not good. But he's been in a ton of good TV. He's been in a number of good movies as well. And he's Canadian, so it's a win. It's a win.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would also say that I was a little disappointed at how much Rina Sawayama was not in it. But the trade-off also was that we got to see a fight scene between Donnie Yen and Hiroyuki Sanada, which was pretty electric the whole time.
It was
they are both amazing physical performers as well, and I just wish that they were both in the movie more than they were.
Yeah, and Donnie Yen is also really good at comedy beats too, especially in the final fight. He's legitimately like one of the biggest laughs is from a Donnie Yen line on the steps.
That's very, very true. Yeah, he's funny throughout. There's also he's like right before his first scene, he's been like conscripted by the High Table to go after John Wick, and this team of commandos is chasing after them. And there's a great couple of shots of him just like sitting in the background eating noodles, yes. Like obviously not wanting to do this. Yeah. And just again, it's another one of those things, as with Keanu Reeves, where like he just has such a full understanding of how his body moves that he can make eating noodles kind of hilarious. Like even without the context of what's going on, I think it would still be a funny moment.
Yeah.
So
hey, do you know what's really increased since the first one as well is that the script is becoming more and more about people spouting philosophical quotes at each other. I don't know if you've noticed that as well, but that was really obvious watching all of them in 2 days. How it's, for whatever reason, it's trying to be more and more profound and epic, and that people will say something and oftentimes the response will be, in the 4th century BC, a captain did it, and I could do with less of that, but it's a minor point, really.
I mean, I don't know. I just think it's the one thing that's interesting about these movies to me is that the whole like idea of, you know, John representing free will and the High Table representing order is that it's kind of the best Assassin's Creed movies we never asked for.
Absolutely. This is the best video game movie of which there's been no video game. It felt like another writer, a really good writer called Robbie Collins said, it's like the Drive director decided to make a 3-hour adaptation of a 90s SNK beat 'em up. And at times, especially like the Scott Adkins fight in the middle, feels exactly like an SNK beat 'em up. So
it really does, and it does have a Nicholas Winding Refn sort of like air about it at times too, sort of a little bit self-serious to the point where it's ridiculous but wonderful all at the same time.
Yeah, that beautiful neon purple in a big part of this movie as well. Really gorgeous to look at.
Yeah. So for me, I'm gonna. No. Sorry. Go ahead.
CGI cars, man. The CGI cars did not look good compared to the real cars from the previous movies. There you go. That's all I want to say. There's a big action car scene which would have been impossible with real cars. So I do appreciate that it's a practical requirement, but the physics of cars crashing, for whatever reason, it stands out a mile. Like the dog stuff, the CGI dog stuff as well. You can see when it transitions. And in 3, it looks, I'm pretty sure all the car stuff and dog stuff was real because it looks a lot better. Anyway, that's my last.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole sequence. There's definitely moments where the dogs in particular like become CG because they're in peril. They'd be in real life, they would just not survive what they're being put through.
Yeah.
And so like I'm not in any way arguing against them being CG, but you can tell. And at the same time, like some of the car crashing stuff is obviously fake because again, the people involved wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like he does like pretty classic like cowboy thing where he's driving a car without a door and he drifts around a gun and picks it up and drifts around a gun that's on the ground, picks it up and starts shooting like he was riding a horse. And that shit's incredible.
That's pretty great. Yeah, that's pretty
great. So yeah, I mean, it's still a 4-star movie. Like it's not, for all our little nitpicks here, like it's not a bad movie. It's super fun. I do think
it's good. It's good.
The one thing to worry about for me is that it is a nearly 3-hour movie, and for the question of does it earn that runtime, the answer for me is not quite. Like you know, but I seem to be in the minority on that one. Lots of people say that it is the best action movie since Fury Road, and that might still be true, to be totally honest. Like the level of care and sheer like planning and the level of the execution thereof in this movie is incredible. It's amazing, but it is a little bit long. It's a little bit long. It's just like slightly long. Yeah.
Yeah, the Fury Road of John Wick for me is John Wick 3, like without any doubt. And I was thinking about how many stars to give this film, and I would deeply, deeply, deeply love, because of the craft on show, I would love to give it higher, but from my heart, I know that for me this is 3 stars. And as well, like looking back, John Wick 1 is a 4-star movie, and John Wick 2 is a 2-star movie for me, because this movie is better than John Wick 2, not as good as John Wick 1, and Chapter 3 for me is a 5-star movie. So in terms of our scale of 1 to 5, it just makes logical sense to me that I give this 3. But like, go see it. Go see it in the cinema.
For me, it even acknowledging that 2 is out of balance, for me they are 5-4, 5-4. So in terms of number of stars. So
oh really? Okay.
I still, for me, like I can,
That's
as
fair.
much as I have like nitpicks, like they are all great. None of them are bad. Like all of them are all of them are a great time at the movies, and that goes a long way for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a cat.
Hello. Wow. Hello. Hey, Sheldon. That's the cat I never see. They are. This is the kind of film you do want to see in the movies with the big screen. We didn't get a rowdy audience, but a writer saw it with a very vocal audience, and he said people were just applauding after the big action pieces. And if you can get yourself that kind of audience, a bit like RRR, really, I think that will enhance your experience. But more importantly, if you spend money to watch this movie, then they're going to keep making great American action movies. And this kind of thing usually used to, if it got a sequel, it'd be straight to like video on demand with a different actor. Like, this is, to have 4 of these now, of these pure action movies, is something we need to treasure and support, because I would like more of this, please.
Yeah, same thing with like again, Bullet Train, same production people, which I didn't really like, but I you should see that movie because I seem to be in the minority, but also because I want them to make more movies like that.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, like they also did Kate, which is bad, but they also did Violent Night, which is a ton of fun. So definitely
is that the David Harbour Santa movie? I still haven't seen that.
They also did Nobody, which is basically it's like older John Wick with Bob Odenkirk, which is a legitimately fun movie.
Oh, great! Yeah, Kate was terrible, but
yeah, Kate was bad.
That was more the script and the direction, really.
That was
okay.
Kate, as I like, it's still actually one of my most popular reviews on Letterboxd, where my sentence review was that like people who think that John Wick or Atomic Blonde have a style versus substance problem should watch Kate to see what that really looks like.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Mary Elizabeth Winstead is
she can't save it. It's not worth
it. I can't she can't save it. But my crush on her is ridiculous. It always has been. And it's maybe watch it for her, but it's not good at all. No. It's really not good.
And you're never gonna compete with Ewan McGregor anyway, so
God knows I've tried. As my wife keeps telling me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, well, let's move on.
Go see it.
Yeah, go see it. It's in theaters, in cinemas if you're in the UK, and you should see it.
I would watch a live theater performance of John Wick. Oh my god, are you kidding me? If they did a live theater performance of John Wick,
I'm telling you,
holy shit, like a ballet
musical. They're so close to being a musical anyway.
It really, and this is what I said to you. I leaned to you after the opening 10 minutes where they do the Lawrence of Arabia smash cut, crossfade rather, match cut, I should say. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And that the beginning of John Wick 4 is a musical. And I mean that. I don't mean that in the metaphorical style. I mean literally everything is played to a beat and a music, and it is. I wish the whole movie had done that basically, but anyway, it's still a great time. Go see it.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our
Yeah.
second film of the show, because we're running a little long.
I know, but I've got nothing to say about this one, so that's fine.
Yeah, so let's talk about the new Apple TV Plus release. This movie release had its premiere at South by Southwest earlier in March, and then premiered this past weekend on Apple TV Plus. And it is the biographical thriller Tetris, starring Taron Egerton and Nikita Efremov and Toby Jones and a number of other people. And Simon, why don't you give us the rundown on Tetris? Because I think you literally just finished watching it, assuming you finished watching it.
I did, just before the podcast. So Taron Egerton plays Hank Rogers, I should say, who is who's in the job of selling video games around the world, so computer games at that time, and he is one of a number of people who go to different countries and try to develop local games for international release. And at the beginning of the film, he's trying to sell his version of Go. As he describes it, it's like chess, but infinitely harder. At the Consumer Electronics Show when that was still a thing. And it gets right down to it. Basically, it gets right to the point where he sees one of his competitors' game called Tetris, the first time he plays it, and he falls in love with it instantly. And then the rest of the movie is him basically betting the farm on trying to secure the rights for Tetris, or very specifically the handheld rights, because in his conversations with Nintendo, they reveal that they have the Game Boy coming out, and he does a magical mock-up of Tetris working perfectly on the Game Boy, and they fall in love with it. And this whole film just does not waste any time. It's basically I think it takes the main points of the story and kind of rewrites them into something that tries to be a bit more movie friendly. There's a book called Tetris: The Games People Play, which is a graphic novel by Brian Brown, or it's called Box Brown, and it's a really wonderful graphic novel because it actually tells the entire story of all the moving parts, and all the negotiations took longer, and it talks a lot about the game theory as well. It's a really, really wonderful book. So it's really interesting to have read that and then come to the Apple movie Tetris and see how much they've condensed to make it more filmy. And unfortunately, everyone is played and written like a pantomime character. I mean, you heard our ridiculous KGB accents at the beginning. Now, there's no doubt that the KGB are terrible, ruthless people, and communist Russia was pretty ruthless. But it's there's not an ounce of nuance in any of it. In fact, I found it is so determined on getting straight down to the story and then buzzing through the plot points of the story. I actually found it quite boring. And the thing that there's two things that summarize my connection to this movie. The first part is they often use computer graphic overlays to enhance the story that they're trying to tell. And there's one point where Hank is saying, oh, it's like he's trying to convince Nintendo to buy into his Tetris idea, and that Tetris should go with the Game Boy because Mario has Luigi, and it cuts to a video game of Mario and Luigi. And like Link has Zelda, and it cuts to a picture of Legend of Zelda 4 Swords with 2 Links. And then later on, there's a pretty good car chase, to be fair. And they use a computer game overlay to emphasize the dramatic elements of the car chase. And there's one point of the car chase where the car, and they've been playing Tetris a lot up to this point, talking about the blocks fitting together, a truck pulls in and there's a tiny long gap for their car to perfectly slip through before the truck moves over a little bit and the car gets stuck in the long gap, and there's a thin shot from an above angle. There's a thin alleyway with the truck and the car like coming to a stop together. And the video game they overlay to enhance this is a video game Spy Hunter. Instead of using the analogy they've got right in front of them, which is a movie about Tetris. And the whole thing felt like it didn't particularly convince me that the people making it really knew much about the game or what it means to people, or even how to use it in a creative way. I said to you when I started watching this, it's so straightforward. The whole thing is told in such a straightforward way. And I'm really reacting these days to the creativity and way in which a story is told. And when you've got a moment like that, where they use an overhead racer Spy Hunter to show the moment when a car slips between a gap and another car gets stuck in an alleyway, I mean, it's right in front of you to make that analogy with the game your movie is literally about. And so the whole thing was like that for me. It didn't feel, I didn't believe any of it. Everyone's a pantomime character. And I didn't believe any of it.
I would say that I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that, because I think for me, the thing is that they didn't, whenever they do these video game overlays, and especially during that car chase, they're not actually actively aping any game at all. What they seem to be really going for, to my mind, is that they just turn everything into squares. They turn everything into Tetris blocks, but not like the Tetris shapes. Just they like just make the texture pixels. And I think they really missed an opportunity to do what you're saying, which is that like make the pieces slot together. But for me, they're not openly aping any particular game outside of the like chapter markers in the movie, which are very just meant to be like 8-bit graphics, 8-bit color graphics. And everyone, every major character is outlined as a quote player in the story. And I don't know. I think I like this movie, or maybe I didn't dislike it. Maybe I liked it more. Maybe I just didn't dislike it as much, because I think it's ultimately kind of fine. But it's important to note that this movie hits the ground running in the first 10 seconds and never stops. Like, there is no room to breathe in the story.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's go, 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 go the whole time. And and I don't think that's necessarily even a bad structure, but like there's just no room to breathe, like, at all. And it's such a shame, because I think that Taron Egerton is really good in it, and I think that the guy who plays what's his name, Alexei Pajitnatov, he's an actor called Nikita Efremov. I think he's actually really good too, and I think that they have a really interesting chemistry as the this publisher and creator of Tetris, who become unlikely friends. I think that they are legitimately great, and I think that all the scenes they share together are legitimately great.
They're the best ones.
And it's just that and I know that we have this. Obviously, again, like you said, Soviet Russia was probably a terrible place, but this feels like 80s comedy version of Russian bureaucracy to a point. And honestly, maybe it was like that. But this movie gives us so little time to absorb that context that it's a little over the top.
I totally agree. And you're right about the beginning. I thought it was especially annoying because when we meet the time between us meeting Hank, and by the way, there's he's narrating all of his feelings at this point as well in a voiceover, which I hate to. But the time between us meeting him and him seeing Tetris for the first time is about a minute. Like there's we are not given any information to bond with him, or to see him try and sell his games that aren't landing, or to see his life. So we're not given the context. So when he sees Tetris as this thing, like, it's meaningless to us because we don't know anything about him. Like, the movie begins with him going, "Oh, look, here's Tetris." And if it had given a better scriptwriter, would have given him a bit more time, given us a bit more time to meet him and learn about why Tetris should feel important to him. Like, we don't know who he is. We don't know anything past that he's trying to sell one game. And you're right. It just completely rushes it. And it just feels so straightforward. It doesn't feel that creative. All the video game stuff feels super labored. And it doesn't have that spark that it really, really needed, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think for me, it's just that I think I'm basically trying to say the same thing you're saying. I'm trying to find a different way to say it. But the storytelling itself is so straightforward, and I feel like this would have been a perfect example of a film where they needed an unreliable narrator smirking at the screen every once in a while. If they're gonna make a movie where Russian bureaucracy, it literally has 3 different people negotiating for the rights to this video game, which, like, in an authoritarian regime, like, that alone is already a little bit ridiculous. And so I feel like if Taron Egerton's character, if Hank had been the one to every once in a while to, like, there's a moment where the Russians don't really realize they've been duped by this Western company, and he explains it to them. And in that whole sequence, which is a long sequence, it's probably more like 8 or 10 minutes of the movie. And I just feel like every time he explains something to him and the Russians walk out of the room, if he'd looked at the camera and been like, could you believe this shit? Like, this actually happened. This happened. This is how it went down. Kind of like, and I think the closest example would be like a movie like The Big Short, where you have the characters who are like one of my favorite moments in The Big Short is these 2 younger investors in the movie. They find this like pitch document for an investment in the middle of a lobby of a bigger bank, and they look right at the camera and they say, okay, this is not how this happened. We just don't have time to tell you how it actually happened. So we're just going to pretend like, I feel like this movie could use that level of narration.
Yeah.
Or even if they went full Wolf of Wall Street with it, where like the main character was just a total douchebag and just was like, yeah, this is what happened. I did the thing, like they needed any little extra bit of creativity in the way the story was told would make this a great movie.
Yeah. Or have the Russian KGB woman who plays a pivotal part in this, have her as the narrator and reveal her as the narrator at the end. Like, have a more interesting angle than the main character saying, here I am and this is what I'm thinking. It's so lazy. It's so straightforward. Oops. And any of those ideas you've just suggested would have made this movie better. There's just a real lack of creativity in the way this is told. And I hate to say it, but it feels like a streaming movie. It feels like a made-for-TV streaming movie. I'm not sure this would have been made this way for a theatrical release. And as there's this big push for the streaming services are all trying to get their own exclusives as these big movie events. And more often than not, there's a real lack of creativity in these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean,
in my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I don't really have a ton else to say about this movie.
No, I got nothing else to say about it. I was kind of bored by it.
I was going to say that I think this is probably the perfect kind of movie to have on in the background while you're doing other stuff. You know what I mean? Although I will say one thing. There's one thing I legitimately liked about this movie, and that's the music. I did really like the music in the movie. The score is great. It makes a really good. There's one great needle drop. There's also really good use of the actual Tetris theme mixed into the score of the film. And Lauren Balfe is a great composer, and I do really like the music in this movie.
Yeah.
And again, if you're a fan of Taron Egerton, probably gonna like this. If you like Toby Jones, probably gonna like this. I like
Ben Miles. I think Ben Miles is great.
Yeah, I think for me, my guess is, and I'm just reading your brain here, but my guess is you're about to give it 2 stars. Yes. Is that correct? Yeah.
You know me very well. Yeah, I mean, it was fine. 2 stars doesn't mean bad. It was totally fine, but so straightforward.
So for me, it's going to be a 3. For the same reason. 3 is where if it's fine, then it's 3. That's for me. 2 is the beginnings of bad for me. So it's a 3. Because I think it's perfectly it's not great, but it's perfectly cromulent. There's nothing exactly wrong with it. It's when you watch as many movies as we do, it's just frustrating that it's not better. And that's not that's not saying that it's bad. It's just frustrating that it's not better.
Just annoyed at the opportunities they had to integrate Tetris into the telling of this story about Tetris, and just completely squandered them.
Yeah.
And then the ones they did make, a couple of them were completely either incorrectly used or just plain incorrect. So
yeah, I agree.
Anyway,
well, that's 2 films for this week. We will probably be back. Next weekend is Easter weekend, so we may be on a break because I will be out of town. But that is yet to be determined. So we will probably see you in 2 weeks' time. If you are new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. If you are not new to the show, thank you so much for sticking around. We do appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to check out if you do like the show, we do have a Patreon, and if you subscribe to that, you can listen to our bonus chats. This week we talked at length about Kurosawa and our various gaps in our personal film canons. And I'm still astounded that Simon's never seen a Kurosawa. I'm just gonna.
Come on, dude. He's probably overrated anyway.
Yeah,
Take that cut to Zoom.
Wow. Coming in hot, Captain Hot Takes makes his stunning return to the Awesome Friday podcast. But anyway, the bonus chats are available to patrons of all tiers, so do check that out. The cheapest tier is only $2 a month. So the other thing you could do for us if you like the show, just share with your friends. Give us a high rating on your podcasting platform of choice, or subscribe. Those things help immeasurably. You can find us on the socials, me at SmatthewAF, Simon at Temporary Pen, and the show at Awesome Friday CA. We record this here in Vancouver on the traditional ancestral lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. And thank you one more time so much for joining us on this Awesome Friday.
Bye.